I got news from my dad. He was diagnosed with cancer. Had a first-hand experience of how frustrating and painful that process was. And also realizing how slow our life science R&D progress is when people need it. So after that, I decided I'm going to dedicate my life to build the infrastructure, particularly the software digital side, to accelerate life science R&D.
That was Yaoyu Yang, founder and CEO of Cypher AI, a company building the intelligent digital infrastructure that life science R&D has been missing. Cypher AI is reimagining how biotech and pharma companies capture, connect, and act on their scientific knowledge, replacing the fragmented patchwork of rigid software, siloed data, and endless Excel sheets with an adaptive, one-stop platform built around the way science actually works. They're not just selling software. They're embedding alongside scientists to make sure it actually gets used. Welcome to the Biotech Stack, where we go behind the science to meet the founders and leaders building the tools, platforms, and technologies that make discovery possible. From lab automation and AI-driven research to genomics, diagnostics, and clinical technologies, we cover the full stack, from the R&D bench all the way through the clinical lab. I'm Corinne Regan, your host, and in today's episode, I'm joined by Yaoyu Yang, founder and CEO of Cypher AI. Yaoyu shares his story of growing up in a small coal mining town in northern China before he earned his way into one of the country's top universities. But it was watching his father battle cancer during the height of COVID and feeling firsthand the painful slowness of life sciences progress that lit the fire behind Cypher. Let's get started. All right, well, Yaoyu, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. I'd love it if you could take us through your journey, who you are, and what led you to start Cypher AI.
Yeah. So this is my backstory. Again, I'm Yaoyu. I grew up in China, northern part of China, in a small coal mining town. And family started from poverty, really worked their ass off to support me and my older brother's education. I was sent to a boarding school at age of 12. It was not a great boarding school condition. It was like 12 kids packed like sardines in a dorm room kind of situation. I still remember this one morning during school assembly, I just completely passed out on the ground. Turns out I was on low blood sugar. Why was I on low blood sugar? Because I was skipping meals to save money.
Gotcha.
So that's the kind of childhood I grew up. Lots of challenges, worked really hard. I graduated top 30 out of 300,000 students in China's national entrance exam,
Wow.
which changed my life. My parents want me and my brothers to become doctors. My brother actually followed the path, but I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I ended up like study computer science and electrical engineering in one of the best schools in China. Absolutely had a blast. Came to US to further my studies in a PhD program in University of Washington, Seattle. That's where I met a professor in the W department. He opened a biology lab in the basement. I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing? And he was selling me this dream of we're going to apply engineering principles to engineer biological systems and life itself. I'm like, that sounds like the future. So I ended up pivoting to biology, learned molecular biology from ground up. And little did I know, after 2 years, I realized I was just doing this.
Right.
This is pipetting, right? And I was like, this thing just goddamn too slow. How can we accelerate this? So I ended up writing a lot of software systems. One of the software system I wrote that was basically infrastructure for like lab in the cloud.
Okay.
Keep track of the protocols, workflows in the lab, and we actually hire undergrads to follow those protocols, do the work for us. It's like we eventually built a cloud lab that got used by teams in MIT and also Nobel laureate David Biggs lab. So they still use part of the system till today. Pretty proud. That leads me to Ginkgo Bioworks. I joined Ginkgo. It was a 100% startup. It was like one of the hottest biotech startup back then. Earned a reputation. This guy understands biology, can also deliver software solutions people love. Becomes one of the highest ranking software engineers in less than 4 years. A record speed. Ginkgo also went public during 2021. It was a $20 billion IPO. I went to New York Stock Exchange. It was like things were great. 3 months after that, I got news from my dad. He was diagnosed with cancer.
Okay.
So that was the
Sorry.
height of COVID. China was on lockdown, so it's just like even really hard to get back to China. I eventually secured a ticket that $25,000, one way ticket back to China, quarantined for 21 days in hotel in Shanghai. Eventually got back to my dad, but it was too late. He was stage 4 solid tumor. There were no real cure options. So he fought cancer for 2 years. I was there like back and forth 5 times. Had the first-hand experience of how frustrating and painful that process was, and also realizing how slow our life science R&D progress is when people need it. So after that, I decided I'm going to dedicate my life to build the infrastructure, particularly the software digital side, to accelerate life science R&D. So that's my story, and that directly leads me how I started Cypher.
Well, what a powerful story and what a great reason to start something to accelerate the need, because it is a need. It's a
Yeah,
huge need.
absolutely, 100%.
Could you describe in a little more detail what Cypher AI is? What is the exact problem you're trying to solve? I know you alluded to it a little bit.
Mm.
And then how are you actually trying to solve that problem?
Yeah, that's a super great question. So as Cypher AI, what our aim is building an intelligent digital infrastructure for life science R&D. So why do we do that? So I've been in this intersection for 15 years. I've learned the hard truth is that the static workflows and software does not fit biology. And the workflows in life science R&D, they're not predefined. They are discovered. Things keep changing because science is evolving and it's highly dynamic. Whereas, there are a lot of software systems out there, and including like Ginkgo Bioworks, like we build some of the world's most advanced software systems. And yet, we've learned half the workflows are still happening on Excel sheets.
Right?
And the reason for that is often like the workflow has changed, but the software hasn't kept up. And the scientists get frustrated, is like, oh, I don't want to deal with this, so I'm just going to revert back to my Excel sheets. Then you end up like all your knowledge are actually scattered around different systems and siloed, and leads to a lot of problems. I actually experienced one problem where there's some upstream vendors like swap the order of 2 Excel sheets. It was a benign mistake, right? What could possibly go wrong? That cascading effect 10 steps down the way actually leads to a mistake that's worth $10 million. It's crazy. And there's many different stories like this in life science where like people just repeat experiments and only realizing somebody has done that exact same thing in their company. It's like this happens like to a small startup. I work in the engine. There's one MIT's startup incubator. It's like a real example. I've talked to a 10-person startup. It's like not a large corporation, but they still have this problem. And this is where we believe the old model just doesn't work on the software digital side. We need a new model. And Cypher's new model is rather than giving a rigid, compliance-driven environment, we enable the scientists to describe their problems, and we build on-demand solutions for them to help their experiment design, sample experiment tracking, data analysis, and even coordinating with different CRO vendors. So all in the same platform. And the key thing is really this adaptability, right? The scientists can change and can evolve their science with the software.
And can you go into a little more detail on the software when we're talking about this platform? Is this an ELN? Is it classified as a LIMS? Is this a sample management platform? Is this something where you're writing protocols and pulling stuff from AI? A little more detail would be helpful to just get our heads around it.
It's actually all of the above you just mentioned.
Okay.
We have all of those software components built in Cypher. The idea is to have a one-stop shop for scientists so that they don't need to juggle through like 20 different tools to accomplish their experiments.
Gotcha. Okay. And then from an integration standpoint, this can be a really powerful tool, right? There are a lot of instruments and tools on the market.
Yes.
Is this platform capable of helping scientists not only get all of those platforms in one location, but then automate and integrate with other things that are in their workflow?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we more like view us as the connected tissue that get things done, right? There are a lot of sort of non-glorious work that scientists had to do, right? Like just shipping things from one place to another. I mean, copy paste from one place to another. Just like a lot of those work actually takes a lot of time, but they are not something like as fancy as using AI to design your proteins, right? But these are the actual work scientists take on, right? Recording what they did in the lab, right? And those are the things we really really care about, because I was a scientist before. I know how hard it is actually is do the science, and we don't want the software to be additional bottleneck for that process.
Which is great.
Yeah.
And then from a market perspective, you mentioned life sciences, but life sciences could obviously be pretty broad.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a niche that you're working on? Are you sticking to small molecule? Are we doing biologics? Are we in the cell and gene therapy space? What is the market you're hoping to focus on?
Yeah, so we are sort of modality agnostic in terms of life science domain, but what our current focus on is more on the small to medium biotech companies. And those companies, they actually needs the most flexibility because their science workflows are highly evolving, and they usually lack like a large computational or software team to actually back them. So we actually play that role. So one thing I should mention is like we actually Cypher is not a pure SaaS player in this world, right? We're not just you know we're not just providing the software, but we also provide you really high touch services. So we actually deploy what we call forward deploy engineer. Like it's like a Palantir model, right? You get a fractional engineers actually understand your company's workflow, and we help deploy our entire software infrastructure also connected with your system to actually achieve the outcomes that company needs.
And so you talk about this being a not rigid platform. This is a flexible platform.
Correct.
But in addition to that, what else makes you different from other platforms on the market? Like you mentioned, there are a lot of software companies that are trying to approach
Mm.
labs in the same way.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think there's two core things that we really stand out. The first is our data models in terms of how we model the processes happening in the lab. This we call our LIMS system. Typically, a LIMS system contains, how you track your containers, your samples, and your materials. Means like the things in the tube. What we do beyond that is our we like our team collectively has decades of experience in this space, right? Building generation of LIMS system. What we've learned is just tracking those things is not enough. The knowledge is actually in the workflow, meaning how those samples, containers, materials are actually derived is more important than the sample itself. So for that, we actually build a model specifically called workflow lineage. So this tracks how a sample is actually produced from the abstraction levels, like what are the work actually needed to get done to produce that. So what we model as workflows and steps, each step is an input output abstraction, which means all the data samples from the system are actually linked together so that when you get data from instrument, you know like how you can actually plot the data, for example, like 5 steps beforehand, right? Like there are parameters there, assays there you actually want to correlate. By connecting all those via our workflow, you have that capability to do that.
Okay.
So that's number one. So number two is we really pride ourselves to provide us this enterprise Palantir level services to the companies, because a lot of failures we've seen in the industry is that you can have like fancy software in the world, but scientists are still going to just stick their Excel sheets into those software, right? It's like this is what we heard over and over, like in Kendall Square. This is like the epic center of biotech, right? I have friends who are working in develop some like the most amazing therapeutics. And you ask them what kind of software do you use? They were like, oh, we use Benchling, we use like the CLM. I was like, what do you actually use? Oh, we're just like using Excel sheets, sticking those into the software for compliance reasons,
Right.
right? So what we really pride ourselves that we actually go to those organizations, understanding their workflows. So all of
Right.
us have scientific background, right? Deep scientific background. We can visualize understanding where the workflows are, where the bottlenecks are, and then we deploy our software stack to solve that problems. So those are the two things I think really differentiate us.
Talking a little bit more about the team itself,
Mm.
what does your team look like today since you're, a bit on the newer side?
Yeah. So I'm the solo founder and CEO. We have an amazing team. Our VP of engineering, Jamie Cho, he was the head of software at Ginkgo Bioworks. He built the software team from Ginkgo, like from 8 person to 70 person engineers. His most recent stint was at a San Diego startup called Sapient. He built the software team there. This guy's an industry veteran, like in this space. And we have Michael Taylor, our founding engineer. He was a high throughput screening scientist at Ginkgo for 5.5 years. He lived through the pains, right? He worked with top pharma and biotech companies, on Ginkgo's projects, and he lived through the pains I described. And he's now actually building the features and product he wished he had, but also acting as our forward deploy engineer lead to the organizations that adopting our solutions, really understanding that scientific know-how and workflow knowledge combined with the software skills really make a huge difference. And our customers love that, right? Like I was just talking to one of our customers' CEO launch yesterday, and he was like, "You guys are incredible, right? You actually you came to like our lab and understanding our process, and nobody else did that." And they were having actually originally they had two like sort of lab informatics ELM providers. They just like terminated the other ones. Like we're betting all on you, even though like our team's like, oh, we should have a backup plan. It's like no, like we are betting all on you, because they believe we will help them succeed.
Yeah, that's great because that's a true partnership too. It's not a this is a customer who's buying our product. This is a partnership on how we can grow together,
Totally, 100%.
which is amazing. Going down the rabbit hole of partnerships, you are a newer company, and partnerships and getting these early investments are obviously an important part of the story.
Mm.
Two questions. The first one is it looks like Cypher recently joined something called E2B for Startups program.
Mm.
I'm not really sure what this program is. Do you mind sharing what this is and how this is a value add to yourself and the community?
Yeah, so this is how actually this is a more technical side than sort of like life science related. It's
Oh,
about like the flexibility of scientists need to write usually like vibe coding a lot of on point solutions. Those usually contain code, and those code need to be executed really really fast. The E2B is an infrastructure. This is a commercial solutions that we adopted that can execute those code in a secure, scalable environment, like on millisecond scale, right? You can spin up the instance like in milliseconds and execute the code and then return the data to the scientist. So it's a really infrastructure partnership for us.
interesting. Okay. And then talking more about the financial partnerships, you've
Mm,
also recently received 2 million in a seed round.
correct.
What what is the plan with those funds? Where do you see those being allocated?
Yeah. So we recently closed, our C round led by Manc Ventures, right? Incredible West Coast VC. And our plan for the funds are to really build out our product, our business, and scale, right? So, which including we will need hire more people. So this is, you know, we're a forward deploy engineer model, right? It does require high touch services, and we are hiring a go to market person, right? So to help me to do the business development. So those are the areas we're expanding our team to, but also like those resources will be used to really build out the business.
Gotcha. And then just out of curiosity, are you focused right now just on the US market? Is there a global initiative? Where are you in that process?
We are positioning ourselves to be a global, market. our majority of customers come from the US, but we
Okay.
also have a few customers in the Europe. So these
Ah,
are they're like minor contract with us, but we're like, planting that seeds in the Europe market, and hopefully that will grow to a big market as well for us.
oh yeah. Okay, that's awesome. And then talking a little bit more on this commercialization, this go-to-market strategy, what is the initial strategy? You mentioned small to medium biotechs. Is it just to focus on that in both the United States and Europe? Do you have a strategy in place for the trajectory?
Yeah, that's a super great question that one, I'm pondering like every day, right? Uh, so current focus is small to biotech companies, but we are also again planting the seeds for growing larger corporations, including big pharmas. So we're talking to several pharmas and have made tremendous of progress in that regards. Like some are like under NDA, I cannot talk about. Uh, great progress there. So those are the like we're really like in the game of like climbing the ladders, right? So small biotech companies they have immediate needs, right? It's a shorter sales cycle. We can see the effect really quickly in order for our business to grow, right, to really, this is like a venture backed business, right? We're looking for multi-billion dollar outcome. So you really need to tap to the big players, right, who have deeper pockets that can support, larger, contract and the revenue.
Gotcha. Okay. And then talking about how you're getting your name out there as part of this commercial strategy, I know the conference circuit can be a really valuable tool in this space.
Mhm.
Conferences like SLAS and Bio. What are some important conferences for Cypher AI, and maybe where are some additional conferences throughout 2026 that people can maybe get a demo or come talk to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our favorite conference in the earlier years is SLAS. So SLAS was hosting Boston. We actually honored to got invited for a talk at SLAS, and that was a great experience. SLAS like perfect fits our even though it's like more focused on like automation, but the business we're in it's all about making the process more efficient to actually like model out your lab process in a way that you can understand what's going on, right, in a transparent way. So Slash fits perfectly. And so we got some really high quality leads, right? Some of our pharma leads, like actually from there, right? They listened to our talk and was really impressed by what we do and started that conversation, right? So some are like, fruition Asian to like a pilot. So incredible. And then another conference we went to, like just 2 months ago, was Symbol Beta.
Ah, okay.
So I think Symbol Beta has a special place in my heart because I was a synthetic biologist by training, and
Okay.
pretty much grew up with Symbol Beta. So we went there. We did a booth. It was like incredible. Like we got a lot of customers actually approaching us like on nonstop through the conference, like wanting to understand what kind of stack we're building. We actually hosted a founders dinner, like as a side event
Okay.
in that conference. It was actually called, like the theme was like, what should be the modern biotech stack look like? And that's like fits perfectly to your podcast. It's like when you reach out to me, it's like, wow, we really clicked. We didn't really plan this, but really, really clicked. So, and I just recently went to Bio 2026 in San Diego. That was quite an experience for me. It was like the first bow I went to. It was
Okay. It's
overwhelming to say the least. I was like
yes.
that conference, exhibition hall is like, it's like this is this is not ending, right? There's like over 1,000 companies there, exhibits. It's crazy. But we got a lot of. I think Bao is actually a great place for us. Like those are all companies working in the life science domain, and they're in different, really in various different stages of our life cycles, and they all need digital infrastructure that better serve them. So those are the conference we went when in the beginning in the H1 2026 for the future conferences, like we're pretty excited about this three conferences we actually went to. Likely we'll go there again, next year. For other conferences, like we're still, figure out our conference strategy. So there's a couple of potential like candidates we're looking at, but none has decided at this moment.
Gotcha. What about SLAS 2027? Is there potential for that on the horizon?
Yes, we're going to slash 2027 for sure, and about 2027 for sure as well.
Okay, well, that's good. That's awesome. Those are two amazing ones to have on the radar.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
so then looking ahead for Cypher AI, what does the future of your company look like? That could be, what does the next 6 months look like, the next 5 years, the next 10 years, whatever you're comfortable sharing with us.
Yeah, yeah. That sounds like a question from the VC. Uh, VC was like, what is the outcome we can get, right? Um, for me, right? Like this is really a mission for me, right? Certainly there are financial projections we are trying to hit, but this is really a mission for me that I see what an impact it can make on the biotech pharma companies, and that impact can translate to impact to the humanity, right? Including people's lives, including our environment, right? A future of the planet. So that's what really drives me. And in terms of what we want to achieve in the next 6 months, really want to grow the business to a point that we find this product market fit. We're still like exploring that, still like do a lot of experimentation. But our bet is this Palantir model, like where we actually go deploy our people and software in the company is going to make a huge difference. Right. So those are the proof points we want to actually get to in 6 months, right? Those will comes with a form of metrics like how many companies we have really deployed this model. What are the recurring revenue from that, right? So, from our financial projections, we're like really aiming like $1 million of recurring revenue by the end of the year.
Okay.
Ambitious goal, right? We're
Yeah.
basically
Good goal.
10x from last year. Uh, and in terms of 5 year, 10 year trajectory, I can see like 5 year, like, we're going to be IPO, right? New York Stock Exchange. And 10 years, we're really going to be like the infrastructure for the industry that's going to transform the industry to be like my goal is like life science is so behind. Like this industry should operate more like a tech industry,
Right.
and the efficiency and the ecosystem we're building, like the speed and innovation, should dramatically increase over the next 10 years, and we want to be the centerpiece of it.
We'd like to thank our guest, Yaoyu Yang, founder and CEO of Cypher AI, for joining us on the Biotech Stack. For more information on Yaoyu or Cypher AI, please check the links in our show notes below. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.